Hi, I'm Simone Heng, and you're listening to Do Not Clique.
Check 1 2. You're listening to. You're listening to. Do Not Clique.
Okay, so Simone is the proper way to
Simone.
pronounce your name.
Yeah.
Is it? So Simon is for guys, right?
Yes. Who is your screensaver?
Kiko Mizuhara?
Oh, yes, I met her when I was hosting for Shiseido.
You
you
did?
see my pictures?
You met Kiko?
Oh, no, I'm thinking of another girl.
Oh, different girl.
Another Japanese girl.
That's
okay.
alright.
Okay, let's go.
Simone Heng, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, Farakin. I'm
you-
busy.
Yeah, running around here and there.
Yes.
You seem to really have a schedule, like your life planned out, and then if something goes wrong in your schedule, is it like goes haywire?
It's only certain seasons of the year. So right now we are in the ratings period where they take the ratings for our radio show. So there's a lot more activations happening at the radio in addition to the other stuff that I am pursuing. So this period of time is a bit haywire, I'm not going to lie. But then after May through to August is a really nice period, which is a lot more balanced.
I read this article about you where they were like listing from this time to this time, you did yoga, you wake up, what time you sleep.
Yeah.
Is it like really very regimented, your life?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what goes on in the life of Simone Heng on a daily basis?
Today at 12:15, I had an early lunch to be here on time for you. So normally I would have my first appointment at 1 p.m. But I had a 12:15 lunch with two friends and a guy they wanted to introduce me to as a potential date, actually. It was like a double date thing. And then I came here with you. And then after this, I will have my mentor for my speaking stuff at 4 o'clock. And then after that, I will go home and nap from 5:30 to 6:30. And then I'll get up and I have to write a promo for the radio show. I already cooked my dinner yesterday, so it's already frozen, ready to go. And then I will go to the station at 7:30. John Klass and I will prep. We'll be on air from 8, and that will go to 12 in the morning. And then I will sleep at around 2. So you see, actually, my actual social time is done around lunchtime. So where you would normally have a dinner with your friends, like I have that as my first meeting of the day.
John Klass, he's been working on radio for a very long time, right?
I'm not sure. I only moved here to Singapore in 2015, so I'm not quite sure. I think John was working radio and he left for a while, and yeah.
Okay. You can speak German and English. Is there a German way to pronounce your name?
Simone.
Simone.
Yeah.
How do you say hello in German?
Hello?
Hello. It's still hello. How fluent are you in German anyways?
I studied this. I'm actually, when I have a few drinks, it's still very good, but it was 2002, so it was a long time ago.
Okay, so do you learn English first or do you learn to speak German first?
English is my first language, so I didn't have
Okay.
to learn it. Born here in Singapore, but mixed race parents. So
Okay.
when I was 17, I got the scholarship to study in Switzerland. So that's when I had to learn it to go to school.
Switzerland. Oh, how was that like?
That was amazing. I mean, it's a really calm country. It's got a very high standard of living, extremely safe. But similar to Singapore, it's really efficient. And I learned a lot of the traits of how to be successful from living in Switzerland. So I give you an example. I grew up in a very Asian household. People always shout and yell at each other, not because they're angry, but it's just chaotic. But in Switzerland, the house is very ordered and very regimented. And every child in the family has an alarm clock. So there's never any fights or squabbling about people being late to go to an appointment because everybody knows what time they have to set their alarm clock. So I realized if I want to have a calmer home, I can live a bit more like the Swiss way and make sure that I'm always on time and I know where I've got to be and set my alarm with enough time for me to get ready. So that's a big thing that I learned, that just by being organized, you can live a calmer life.
But I bet people you meet with are not always on time, right?
So I lived in Dubai for 5 years. I don't know if you know that. I lived in the Arab world for 5 years. And in the Arab world, there's kind of a rule where the higher in seniority someone is that you're meeting, the later they're actually going to be to show that they are higher in seniority to you. But I was always very on time and very efficient. So since living in Switzerland, I wasn't prior to that. So I would show up for auditions and things early. You know, my host father in Switzerland used to say, Simone, if you are not 5 minutes early, you are late. So I would always be early. And so I would get the script a lot longer than my competitors, if you like. And they would rock up late, 30 minutes late, you know.
30 minutes late is early for Singaporeans.
Well, I don't know about
let us
that.
stop being on time.
But 30 minutes late, you know, in the Arab world is quite normal. And so I ended up getting a lot of these gigs just by being early. So I think that taught me a really big lesson.
Okay, so while you were studying in Switzerland, did you do anything related to hosting or radio?
I was in my Hauptfach. Hauptfach is like your specialism. Was in the Kunst stream, which is the arts. So I was there in the art stream, but the school that I went to is actually one of the best secondary schools in the world to feed into one of the world's best economic universities. So most of the kids that went to my school actually did economics as their big thing. And I was doing art. So it was kind of related in terms I was in choir and things like that. There were some performance elements, but I was more there to learn German, learn the language. Yeah.
Okay. Have you always wanted to do hosting and DJ?
I
when you were
always
younger?
wanted to be a host. Yeah.
Okay. Then you reach your dreams.
Yeah, I remember being 12 years old and coming to Singapore and seeing Nadia Hutagalung on MTV and thinking that's what I want to do. And I was always very type A at school, very achievement driven. I'm not so much anymore. I'm more about being driven by the process of being creative and by the pleasure that I get out of helping other people by being creative. But back in those days, as a kid, like not achieving my goals, it was almost like not tolerated in the house I grew up in. Like my mum is a former RGS school teacher, so she was very studies and paper focused.
Tiger mom?
Super tiger mum. The only Eurasian woman I know that is a tiger mum, actually.
Do you have any siblings?
Yes, I have an older sister. She's a partner in a law firm in Australia.
Wow, very successful family.
Well, I don't know if they consider me successful. They consider me like the black sheep because of what I do is like posting on Instagram. They understand it, but they don't. I think what more amazes my mum and my sister is like my marketing brain. They don't actually think I'm very talented or good at what I do. They think that I'm a good marketeer, so that's what they think.
You were by yourself in Switzerland, right?
Yeah, living with 3 beautiful, kind families. Amazing. But it was a very big changing moment for me because I was 17 years old. And after that experience, I knew I could never just live in one country again. So the Swiss experience kind of molded my career in that way because I was like, I want to live all over the world. I don't want to just do radio in Singapore or just live in Australia. I want to be able to do what I love all over the world. And that became like a filter for a lot of the choices I made and in terms of clients I worked for. When I first moved to Singapore, one of the first gigs I got was for HBO Asia, and it didn't pay very much, but it was more that I knew that that was a name that if I wanted to live overseas, that name would be recognized.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
Yep.
So it became a filter for a lot of the decisions I made.
How did you start out? Did you do small gigs here and there?
Oh gosh, I did the work. Like I remember while I was at university in Australia, I was with a promotions agency. And you know when you see events and you see people like dressed up in the cow costume or whatever? Like my boyfriend was in the cow costume and I was the girl that would walk around at the event like giving people free samples.
Okay.
And he was in the cow costume and he couldn't see. And I would be walking around like, this is my first exposure to events, you know, was doing stuff at this kind of ground level. And with the live hosting, which is a huge passion of mine, obviously now becoming a professional speaker, I just remember churning out the hours, like the amount of radio road shows that I did that pay next to nothing, just standing in the humidity here in Singapore, you know, like at corners. I remember one on the corner of Tang's in Orchard and just sweating and like speaking out the mic. But all of those small shows really built me to be very quick in my thinking. So they were worth it.
But there was not really tutorial on how to be a DJ or how to be a host. So how did you develop the skills or like how do you know what to do with a mic?
So I did a university degree in communications. So it taught me to write. It's a big part
Some
of
form
actually
of
writing is a
foundation.
big part of my job. And then from there I did a theatre degree. So I knew a lot about being on stage. So I did a theatre minor and a literary studies major. So I could write and then I learned to be performative, use the stage, use energy, modulate your voice, things like that. And then I did a TV presenter's course part-time in Perth while I was studying. And I realized that I just could always just speak very naturally to camera. So that part of it, I think, I was just very, very lucky. But that does make it difficult for me now because I'm going into coaching people. And when you're a natural at something, it's very hard to teach other people how to do what you naturally can do.
Also, it was very organic for you, like the growth as to become a host and presenter.
It wasn't, because at that time in Asia, 2005, there was a practice of hiring a lot of Eurasian models who were not part Singaporean at all. And there was me, 100% Singaporean, you know, Gragot mother, Chinese father. And, you know, I would lose out on a lot of hosting gigs, even though I could speak better to camera than these girls because I wasn't as pretty or as tall or as skinny as these girls. And it was extremely frustrating for me.
I think you're very pretty.
But I wasn't at the time because I wasn't earning any money. This is all very much groomed and I know how to do makeup and everything now. But at that time, it wasn't that way. But the funny thing is the industry has now changed kind of in my favor, because back then you were at the whim and fancy of whatever director thought you were good enough, or whatever production company wanted to hire you, or whatever network. Whereas now you can really build your own brand and all of that kind of stuff yourself, as you know from your podcast. And so if you're a go-getter and a self-starter, you will now have more longevity and win the game over somebody who might look what the packaging is, but not be very self-motivated. So it's funny, I think I saw the change in about 2011 when social media became really pervasive and I was in Dubai. I really saw a change in the industry globally.
What was it like working in Dubai, and how did working there came about?
So I was at Power 98, and one day I got an email from Virgin Radio International saying, how would you like to come and live and work in the fastest growing city in the world? Which prior to the global financial crisis in 2009, Dubai was. And at the time, I really didn't like Singapore because I was earning very little money, and Singapore is extremely expensive. If you want to love Singapore, you got to be making some money. So I jumped at it, and I later found out that they had written to 2 local DJs in the Singapore market that they think could work kind of globally in their branding, because the way I speak is not totally Singaporean, right? And I was the only one who replied. So once again, this is the lesson about being a go-getter. Reply, even if you want to say no, reply. It's good PR, right? And they offered me a package, including annual flight home to see my mother in Australia, healthcare, a salary that was almost 4 times my Singapore salary. And so I went over, 24 years old, didn't know a soul in the Middle East, single woman. I looked probably about 18 years old at the time. I was 24, but I looked about 18. And because I'd had the Swiss experience of living alone, I wasn't scared by it at all, because that's what I put out to the universe that I wanted. And it was my dream brand. Like Virgin Radio for me, it's the McDonald's of international radio stations. It doesn't get much better in terms of like a brand that already has recognition, but a support system and a really positive working culture where, employees are really appreciated, really paid for what they're worth. And so that's how it came about.
From what I know, in Dubai, certain events like WWE or something goes there. Like, women are not allowed to attend these events.
No, it's not true at all. One of my former colleagues from Virgin Radio, Shadia Bezeo, I think her surname is, she's the first Middle Eastern woman to represent WWE, and she's fighting there. So, and she's gone to the US to do it as well. You can follow her on Instagram. So she is literally killing it. So that's not true at all. Dubai is like super liberal. I mean, I can't speak for Abu Dhabi or Sharjah or the other Emirates, but Dubai as a city, extremely liberal.
There's no discrimination.
No.
Gender-wise.
No, I felt more empowered to speak there than I do here, frankly.
Interesting.
Yeah. And that's something to do with being a woman, just as a human. There is more of a culture of being able to speak than I find here sometimes.
Oh, so the Virgin thing, or you working in CNN and HBO Asia, what was the sequence like?
Oh, so first HBO Asia was 2006 to 2008.
Okay.
End of 2008. Then I obviously left for Dubai, November 2008. I moved there. And then while I was in Dubai, I got CNN and did that luxury special for CNN while I was in Dubai.
So CNN is also in Dubai.
Mm-hmm.
What was the difference between working in all these different companies? Was one company bigger than the other?
Yeah, I think it's very different. Of the 3 different radio groups I've worked for in Australia, Arabia, and Asia, Singapore is the one that is the least alike of the other 2. So in Dubai, they bring a lot of Brits, South Africans, Australians, Kiwis over to manage the radio station. So you're actually working in a largely Western environment with Western values. Whereas when you work in a Singaporean environment, there are still a lot of the Asian values that are very pervasive. For example, I learned about the art of showing face. I never got taught to show face before. I never had to use it. But in Asia, if you want to work in Asia, I'm not just talking at the radio, I mean in any sector in Asia, and you want to be successful, you have to allow people to save face and to show face. Whereas if you work in an Australian environment or even in Dubai, like someone would just say to you, oh, that work you did was really poor, just make it better next time. And you'll have to take that in a meeting next to other people and just do better. Whereas here, no one will ever say that to your face, but they probably will say it behind your back. And you probably find out about it later. And by that time, it might be too late.
Too late.
So it's very, very different in that way.
Do you miss Dubai? Miss the camels there?
I don't miss it anymore. It's really a kind of place that a lot of people, after they leave, they really mourn for a long time because the lifestyle's really great. So probably about 2 years ago is when I really started to let it go. But it was very hard, particularly when I moved back to Australia from Dubai to take care of my mum. It was really hard. It was a real shock to the system. I thought I was stronger than that because I had lived in so many places, but the difference in the lifestyle and the difference in the attitudes was really hard.
Is it more expensive in Singapore or is it more expensive in Dubai?
Singapore is the most expensive. Switzerland is the only country I've lived in more expensive than Singapore. Dubai is the cheapest. Australia, Singapore, Switzerland of the 4 places I've lived.
You feel that, or is that
No, I know
global
that.
statistics?
No, I know that
From
from
experience.
what I pay for coffee, what I pay for rent.
Which place do you enjoy the most?
To
living?
live or to holiday?
To live.
I would say I enjoyed living in Dubai, but actually, for my age now, I actually really am enjoying living in Singapore. I don't think I could live in Dubai now. I need more rest. I don't have as much energy as I used to. So I really enjoy living in Singapore, and I'll tell you why.
Before you continue, is there MRT system in Dubai?
There is, but no one uses it. It's the
Okay.
Dubai Metro. Yeah.
Okay.
It was actually designed by a woman that was one of my mum's students at RGS. So the Dubai Metro was designed by a Singaporean, modeled after our MRT system here in Singapore. So the biggest reason why I love living in Singapore is that if I have any sort of questions or problems, I can ask my expat friends who are Angmo. I can ask my local friends who are Singaporean. I can ask my local family who are obviously going to give me different advice to my friends. And I can't really get that anywhere else in the world. I can't get such 3 diverse views within one country. And I feel that having such diverse opinions surrounding me makes me smarter.
I thought you were going to say you like Singapore because of the food.
No, I'm not basic like that. I'm not basic like that. I think much more deeply about things than that.
But do we have the better variety of food?
I think that Singapore has the best food of any of the countries I've lived in, for sure, hands down.
What about
No contest.
What about your favorite country to go to for
To
holiday?
visit for holiday?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I love Italy. Italy's up there. Where else was I thinking the other day that was absolutely amazing?
Have you been to Japan?
Yes, and Japan would be my second.
Up
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah, for Asian countries, Japan is definitely my favorite, and then for European countries, I would say Italy.
I've been to Rome, and I got robbed there.
Oh, I got robbed in Naples. Don't worry, I think it's like a thing.
It's a thing there.
But I do think Japan is exceptional. Like
Yeah.
it's quite an experience.
yeah,
Yeah,
the culture there is.
it's incredible.
So how do you end up back in Singapore for MediaCorp?
So my mum, I don't know if you know the story about my mum.
I read somewhere that she got dementia.
No. So if you have a chance, watch my speech at Google and it will explain more. But basically, my mum has a very rare disease. And in the middle of 2013, I got a phone call while I was in Dubai to say that she had a massive stroke and she ended up being in a wheelchair. So the disease she has doesn't just give her dementia, it also gives her physical disability as well. So it's kind of a double-pronged thing. And so I had been away at that time for over a decade and I knew it was time to go back. So I went back to Australia for 18 months to help take care of my mum and get her settled into a proper facility because she needs 2 carers because of the toilet situation and cleaning and things. And then I was on air on the radio there in Australia, but I just needed to live in a cosmopolitan global city. I'd been away for too long, and Australia is a monoculture, which means most people have kind of the same experiences, the same schooling system. Perth particularly is not a global city. And so I could feel myself kind of getting really sad. I've never been a depressed person, but I could feel myself getting really, really sad because as a creative person, I need to be creating and there just wasn't the market there for it. And so I looked on a map for the closest cosmopolitan city to Perth. And it wasn't Sydney, it was Singapore.
Back home.
Yeah. I came back to Singapore. I didn't even do that. I emailed Georgie at MediaCorp Radio. I said, hey, Georgie, I'm Simone Heng. This is what I've done. And they offered me a job before I even moved there. Georgina, yeah, who used to work at TCA, the celebrity agency there. And so she brought me out to Singapore in 2015.
Wow. Just like that, huh?
Just like that. I had my EP within 6 weeks. I was out.
Wow. Because of your body of work, is it very easy for you to go anywhere you want?
It has to be English speaking. So my German's not proficient enough to work in, that's for sure.
You know, like whenever people want to apply for a job for MediaCorp, you gotta be bilingual in Mandarin.
It's interesting because obviously Class 95 is an English station, but we're the number 1 station in Singapore, which is really interesting. So we're actually outranking right now even the Mandarin stations. So I think English for that particular job in that particular station, which they were looking to place me in, was paramount. So
Okay.
yeah.
So it was just DJ that you wanted to look for. You didn't have any other choices like...
Oh no, they did bring me out under talent contracts. So That was to do a whole range of things. And my first 2 years here, they did put me across.
Voiceover, TV shows.
Oh, I
and
still
all
do
that.
loads of voiceovers. That's external. But they did put me on a lot of TV shows for Channel 5 and all that. But I don't know if I resonate very well with a very local audience because I was educated overseas, which means I don't have all the colloquialisms that an actual Eurasian girl raised in Singapore would have.
So when you jump from places to places and you finally come to Singapore, do you have like a lot of bag of tricks when it comes to hosting?
Yeah.
Because you had all these experiences working elsewhere. So you come to Singapore like, I'm going to wow these people with my hosting skills.
I definitely think for the live hosting, the biggest thing that I learned in the Arab world was that if I could throw in words of Arabic, I could get an audience on my side very easily. And that there's something about a young, innocent-looking girl speaking a language that isn't hers, even if it's not perfectly, that people find very endearing because it shows vulnerability. And when you show vulnerability, you're very likable to audiences. So even now, you hear me on air, I will say, ayo, alamak, and people message in and be like, oh, that's so cute. I do it also because I was raised in a house where everyone does say alamak, ayo, opocho, and all these kind of things, right? This kind of old Singlish that the migrants brought to Australia with them. I was raised with that. But I also know that it's a great trick in terms of hosting because it shows people that you're not afraid to make fun of yourself and to be vulnerable. And there's something about us as humans that really connects to that.
They appreciate you like learning the...
Yes, and it's imperfection.
language.
If you look at YouTube and what's happening in the media landscape now, and the reason why the kind of speaking stuff and the new rebranding that I've done on Instagram and LinkedIn has been working so much, it's because that people no longer want DJs or TV hosts or actresses who are perfect all the time. They want to see you make mistakes and be imperfect and be human and be on their level, which is why YouTube is now more popular than traditional television.
Because just regular people...
It's regular people. They want to see themselves
Doing
reflected
it.
back in you. Exactly.
It's true. So do you start out with a partner or you did it by yourself, the radio?
I've always been a solo jock until moving to Class 95. And that's been the biggest blessing of being part of the Class 95 family is being given the opportunity to co-host because you're in radio already for a decade, you know, you've been doing it on your own the whole time. You need something to shake it up. And I had Elias first for Love Songs and then now John Klass. So it's been great.
You get to talk less and rest more on air.
No, not really. I probably talk more, but I'm also doing more admin. And when I was with Elias, I ran the panel. So it's more like a beautiful marriage of duties. So John Klass is a lot better than me in terms of the technical, the buttons and the editing. And he also thinks in sound because he's a singer, whereas I think in pictures. So when I talk, I paint pictures for people with words in a way that John probably wouldn't because he thinks in sound. So he will put the sounds in. And so it's a beautiful balance of what he's good at and what I'm good at married together very well. And the show's going along so great. I'm so happy.
So what kind of creative freedom do you get managing your show? If you have ideas, you get to propose it to your boss.
We do propose like a skeleton, an umbrella, but largely we've been trusted as two veterans to do the show on our own. That's great. And the response has been great. So I think also I couldn't have done this show any earlier because up until 2 years ago, I was really adapting to Singapore and finding out what can I say, what can I not say. And now we're at a beautiful point 3.5 years in for me at least.
No cussing.
Where I know what is just funny without being crude, what is acceptable, what's going to be viewed a certain way. And so that clarity allows us to make really good content, which is great.
Can you cuss on radio on other countries?
In Dubai, certainly not. In Australia, yeah, you can say shit. Yeah. But nothing more than that.
You can say it now. This is not radio.
Yeah, it's okay.
You know, tarnish your...
I said crap the other night.
You can't say crap?
It doesn't
On air?
I think it depends what context.
Poo. Or can I say poo?
Yeah, I don't know. But I know in Scandinavia they can say the F word on air.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
If you're a cusser, must be...
I am a cusser, so
You
it is.
are.
I am a cusser in real life.
You have to constantly be watching what you say, you know?
No, but I did it for 5 years in Dubai and I knew that the penalties for it were a lot worse there. So your brain gets trained that the minute you sit in front of a mic, like just what I did there when I said shit, like
Professional.
you immediately, like something happens to you that the minute a mic is in front of you, you go into that mode.
Interesting. So, who are you closest to in MediaCorp? John Klass?
At the radio station? Yeah, John Klass, Jeannie and I talk a lot. But, everyone is also like married and got their own lives too.
Yeah.
So we're more like colleagues. That's pretty standard across all radio stations, actually, in the 3 that I've worked for.
Other than John Klass, who would you be excited to work with in MediaCorp?
I respect Jean so much. I even get like happy when I have to co-host like small shows with her on ground. But mostly I learn a lot from just watching how Jean works generally.
Any interesting stories that you can share doing radio or TV?
I have a story from
Scary story.
Dubai that's hilarious.
Okay.
So my cousin had come to visit me in Australia and we'd gone out the night before work and had a really big night. And the next day I had to go on air. Virgin Radio is a CHR station, which means it's commercial hit radio. So it's top 40. It's like a 987. So your style of presenting for that station is really hyperactive. You're like, ba 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 ba. Okay. Energetic. And my boss had been trying to get me to calm down, calm down, calm down.
You're too energetic.
Too energetic. So then I was still a bit mumble, I think, from the night before, and literally vomiting in the bin in between when the songs were on. Okay,
You're
this is like me. Yeah. I think I was still drunk. I think I was probably 25 years old, like a baby. And then there was a girl who was our brand manager who wanted to very much be on air. So she went to dob on me and was like, Simone's hungover while she's on air, right? To the boss. And my boss said, hey, Simone, you hungover. And he's a Kiwi. And he's now my mentor, right? And I was like, yeah, a little. He's like, sounding great there. Not so energetic. Just right today.
Just right today.
It was such a great story because she was trying to, sabo me. And then I was feeling really unwell. But in the end, it was perfect. So that's how I learned how to do the right level of energy was because I was vomiting into a bin. There you go.
What kind of energy does Class 95 require?
So class is a little bit different. So for example, at Virgin Radio for CHR, we would be made to stand for the entire shift to give that really hyper energy, right? But at class, because we're a different format and we're adult contemporary and we've got a different demographic, we can be a little bit more calm, less shouty. Yeah.
Less shouty. Other than doing radio, you still do some TV shows time to time?
My big thing that I work on now, I don't know if you saw from Instagram or from the other places, but the big thing that I work on now is becoming a professional speaker on the side of the radio. So I get a lot of work doing media trainings, speaking at Google.
TED Talk.
TED Talk style, yeah, but paid. TED Talk is voluntary. So public speaking training, public speaking coaching is really where I'm heading, and it gives me huge amount of joy because it changes people's lives. People who are so scared of being near a microphone and near a camera, it's incredible.
Yeah.
You're giving people a voice, really.
You doing the podcast, you give a lot of positive lessons. When it comes to coaching, you need to have gone through a lot in your life. So what kind of qualifications do you need to have in order to coach for public speaking?
So some people are kind of self-styled coaches. But for me, what I actually realized when I met a lot of these coaches or watched them actually get up on stage and do TED-style talks is that I was actually on par with them as a speaker, if not better, simply because of radio. Radio every evening, unlike television, we're live. So that brain-to-mouth connection becomes extremely honed. So I, at any given time, can articulate what I want to say in the exact way I want to say it with the exact words whenever I want. Now, very few people get that gift because very few people get to work in radio. And I realize a lot of people want that gift. And a lot of my stuff about public speaking goes viral on LinkedIn and has really given a boost to my business and my income. And I realize it's because that is a gift that God has given me or the universe has given me that I'm really grateful for, that many, many, many people want. And it's extremely empowering. So the answer is, I don't think you necessarily need a qualification in stone, but it helps. For example, me, I did a communications degree and I've been speaking live every evening since what feels like the beginning of the time, since 2007. That's 12 years. There are people who do a TV show here and then don't work for 3 months. But there are very few people in the game that are made to do it every single night. So, with anything, the more practice you do, the better you get. So that's the answer. I just think experience is everything.
Wow. Articulate. When I speak my mind, I tend to piss people off. So
Me sometimes too. But maybe it's also developing. So I read a lot. I read a lot as a child, but I read a lot even now as an adult. And I collect words. So I have more and more words all the time. So I tend to piss people off less when I have more word choices. So maybe you just read more books.
I read a lot of comics.
Yeah, I watch a lot of Netflix, which I shouldn't. I should be reading more books.
This is a very exciting one. Are you a Game of Thrones and an Avengers fan?
I'm a huge Game of Thrones fan. Huge. Avengers not so much. Massive Game of Thrones fan. Losing my mind. I don't know if you saw hosting for the Game of Thrones roadshows for MediaCorp, and I'm losing my mind, frankly. I actually have to go and set up my Toggle subscription so I can watch April 15th.
Who's your favorite Game of Thrones character?
Jon Snow, because he's hot.
He knows nothing.
He knows nothing. Who else do I really like from Game of Thrones? I used to really like Daenerys, but she's getting a little bit full of herself recently.
It came out in the news that she had brain aneurysms on the second season or something.
Oh my God.
Like she almost died or something, which is horrifying to know that the future seasons wouldn't have been made had she died.
I actually think that working on that set in those conditions, from what a lot of the cast, like Jon Snow actor has now been saying to everyone, is actually really crazy, like very physically demanding on them.
I'm very surprised how much the Singtel is accepting Game of Thrones or StarHub is accepting Game of Thrones, considering the content of the show itself, like, incest or whatever. Anything that shouldn't be on air is on the show.
It's getting less though. I'm watching Mad Men right now.
As
it's the
the
same thing. As the seasons go on, it's less about that shock stuff and more about the storyline.
To me, it's funny how people can advocate this because everyone loves the show. If you think about it, like if this show was not as popular as it is, it will probably be getting a lot of backlash considering
I'm
going to
tell you the secret to making anything engaging in the whole world, okay? And this is the secret of Game of Thrones. It's stories. Humans, we're storytelling animals, right? So if you can tell a story that captures people's heart and mind and really engages with them, whether you have nudity or shocking themes in it or not, it's going to hold people. And I think that is what Game of Thrones has done. So it doesn't matter now. They're going to be removing all of that.
It's not like American Pie where they have nudity just for the sake of having nudity.
Yeah. It's colouring the world
There's
of
a
Game
reason.
of Thrones. Exactly.
Yeah. Some nudity parts are quite empowering as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
What shows do you like on Netflix?
I actually turned down being in a Netflix show that was filming here in Singapore.
What? Why?
You'll find out more about that. Because it was a reality show.
Keeping Up with Simone Heng?
You hear more about it soon when it'll come out later in the year and you'll see. But yeah, it wasn't the right fit for me. Projects are just like dating, you got to be the right fit. So 1 week before production, I said no. But I am actually right now watching the last couple of seasons of Mad Men, which are turning out to be very disappointing. Mad Men, the first few seasons was giving me a lot of content for the show with John Klass because there's a lot of male-female dynamic going on in it. So that's what I was watching.
When you talk about turning down the shows, back then when you just starting out and you didn't have that financial security or whatever, would you just taken the gig anyway because you just needed the money?
So, yeah, I was thinking about this. I think if I was at the beginning of my career and I had nothing to lose, sure.
But right now you can pick and choose.
Yeah, and I'm going a different direction from reality show now. I'm going into corporate speaking, corporate coaching, and really it's about enjoying the process of being creative and choosing projects that light me up and light other people up and help other people. I don't want to be putting stuff into the world that makes other people feel bad about the world. Do you want to be doing that? No, right?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I wonder what's the direction of my podcast. I approach different guests differently, but at the core of it is I try to get the essence of the guest and what makes them want to achieve their dreams, and then perhaps listeners who listen to that, can get inspired following their footsteps and all that. So hopefully a listener listening to your story helps.
So, I moved to Singapore in 2005 with $500 in my wallet. And after I got a gig with Channel V as a VJ, and I lost that job after 3 months. And my auntie kicked me out of her HDB where I was staying. So I had nowhere to live and no money because I left the aircon on in a room.
And the bill skyrocketed.
No, the bill didn't skyrocket. It was so strange.
Okay.
Anyway, so I literally have never had support from parents financially. Like a lot of people I know still live with their parents in Singapore or live with their husbands or boyfriends. I've always taken care of myself.
Very independent.
But not out of choice. But what that independence has given me, the gifts are huge. So if anyone's listening and they're wondering how they're going to do it, as long as you got $500, you can do it.
It's like The Rock, he got $7 in his pocket.
Exactly. I mean, we're talking about having some real balls here, You really got to love it to be able to gamble like that with your life.
Okay, as we wind down here, what has been the most fulfilling favorite projects that you've done?
Oh gosh, that's such a great question. So many cool things. So when I was in Dubai, we did the world's tallest radio broadcast with Richard Branson. He flew over for it at the top of the Burj Khalifa.
Oh.
That was cool.
Like at the top of the pole?
At the observation deck of the Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest tower. So that was really cool. Since I've been in Singapore...
Can you go up there as a tourist?
Yes.
Okay, so you can pay and then you can...
Yeah, but for us, they blocked it off as a private event. So that was really cool. Here in Singapore, in December, I got to speak at Google HQ and tell my story at Google. And that was exhilarating. That was amazing because that was a really crowd of kind of people that I really respect in that crowd. Yeah.
Okay. So for now, is it like you just go with the flow, or are you working towards achieving something?
I plan everything. Everything's planned. Everything
Okay.
has like an end goal and, well, yeah.
End game.
Is it not an end game?
No.
So this is funny.
That was Avengers.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, so there's a saying, humans, we are not meant to sit at the table of success for too long before we get restless. So you can have goals, and I had these goals for my career that I achieved by the time I turned 30. And I bought my first house. That was a personal goal in addition to my career goals. And then from about 30 until 33, I was really lost because I didn't define my goals for the next 10 years. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And for me, they were horrible years. Like from 2015 when I moved here up until 2017, middle of 2017, was really awful because I was kind of like blowing in the wind. I didn't know what my next move was. But now that I know what my next move is, life is amazing because the process of achieving the goal is much more fun than sitting at the table of success. Once we get there, we're actually quite stagnant. So what I would say to people is, don't be in a rush to reach the destination, but that feeling of growth that you get moving close to your goal every single day is one of the key things to happiness.
Already motivational speaking to me.
No, I mean, look, I read 90 books last year. I read all these sorts of books. I pay for courses. So I'm always looking for nuggets that explain to me why certain things make me feel a certain way. And if I can pass that on to anyone listening now, I would love them to have that because they're huge gifts that changed my life.
Right. And from all your years and years of working, moving to places, what's the most important thing that you've learned that you can share?
That the concept of race doesn't exist, okay? Because in Australia, I was Asian Simone. In Singapore, I'm Angmo or Eurasian Simone. In Switzerland, I was Aussie Simone. And in Dubai, I was just Simone. I didn't have a race. So all this discussion about race around the world is just a man-made construct that doesn't exist. So I think what I mean is, like, humans are humans. And when you're talking to humans on the radio in Dubai or in Australia or in Singapore, the same fundamental things drive them and the same fundamental things entertain them.
Well said. So how can we find you on the gram?
On the gram, at Simone Heng.
Simone.
Heng.
Are you on Facebook?
I am. Facebook.com/Simone
Simone
Heng
Heng.
official. On Facebook, I have a really big following on LinkedIn, and that's where a lot of the content will be. So if you're interested in public speaking, you can find me, Simone Heng, on LinkedIn.
Job security. Large following on LinkedIn.
No. I mean, LinkedIn is not about that now. They've changed the algorithm. So this is the year of LinkedIn. If you watch Gary Vee, the LinkedIn algorithm right now is like the Facebook algorithm in 2007. So it's going to give you a lot of organic growth. So
Really?
my big recommendation, everyone needs to get on LinkedIn and build some LinkedIn real estate. And I have a website, simoneheng.com, and that is always where the most updated bio and everything is going to be. And my latest news blogs are all there.
And of course, your radios.
My radio show.
That's the most important thing you didn't plug.
8 p.m. to 12 a.m., Class 95.
Are you on tonight?
Yes, every night.
Every night. Don't work so hard. You seem to be just a non-stop train.
Oh, it's only now. After May, it will calm down because we'll be out of survey and then, it'll be a bit more balanced. But entertainment has always been like that. You're going to have slow period Chinese New Year or during Ramadan if you're in Dubai, and then you're going to have peak season. So if you don't run with it, you'll be left behind.
When's your next holiday?
May, middle of May. Straight after this wave is over, I will go on holiday, see my mum.
Or back to Australia?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you so much for having me, Farah.
Thank you. You can come do the podcast anytime if you want to.
Oh, thank you. Very sweet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.